Okay, so let's talk about Lone Star Advocates.
Lone Star Family Advocacy.
Family Advocacy. Okay, so give me the elevator 8-second. What is that?
It is navigating family court, both education, legislation, and advocacy. So if you are a parent who finds themselves divorcing today, we can point you and guide you and help you throughout that situation.
So we've had dinner. We've had drinks a couple of times. You have told me some horrific stories. Tell my listeners, when you go to court and the judges are saying, okay, parent A or parent B, mom or dad or whatever, because I watched some of the videos that you sent today, they're not getting a fair shot.
No.
It's not a 50-50 deal.
No.
And you yourself are dealing personally with some of these things.
Yes.
So let's talk about why this is important to conservative voters. And I know that you're a big fan of Mark LaHood. So let's talk about why we need to get the message out, not only about your group, but also how to educate the voter on what it is that they need to be looking for when they're looking for a candidate for district attorney.
Okay. So here's what has been historically a lot of issues for your average good citizen. When an average good citizen goes to work every day and comes home and takes care of their family, they don't get to see things that the minority of people deal with. Say, for example, if you have somebody complaining about not getting a fair shake in criminal court, well, you just look at them and go, well, you were a criminal anyway, you shouldn't have been in criminal court. And so we tend to, as a society, use people's situations to prejudge them, to say, well, the validity of what this person is saying because they were involved in X makes what they're saying invalid. And so we tend to, as a society, just kind of dismiss someone because of their experience. And that is the case in family court. So if you have a friend or neighbors, say you've been neighbors with a couple for 10 years, and they seemed like nice enough neighbors. He went to work, she stayed home, they raised great kids, and then all of a sudden, she's gone crazy and she's this alcoholic, and he's coming over here saying, sorry about my crazy fight with my wife in the yard. Well, now you start to take on this separate vision of what this couple looked like. So now they're in family court. Okay, so the moment they enter that family court, and the moment, let's say you see the wife crying, or you see the husband upset, she didn't give me the kids, he didn't give me the kids, you start to think, well, maybe they weren't the people that I knew. Mm-hmm. And that right there erases what would be a support system for either one of those parents. Because as a societal whole, we think, oh, they're doing this crazy divorce. And as soon as they're engaged in that, nobody really wants anything to do with that. Now, I want to speak to that on two different levels.
So now it's like everybody knows the crap. Mm-hmm. And so they lose their circle.
That's right. That's exactly right. And on one hand of it, it's a good thing. It is healthy for you, if you are in a committed relationship, to distance yourself from people who are no longer in a committed relationship, because it is statistically proven that the closer you are to somebody going through a relational breakup, the higher likelihood it is that would seep over into your own. Because now you and your partner are then having conversations that could potentially lead you to be adversarial with respect to who's on whose side, etc. So it is better for committed people to back away from that. But
I have some personal experience with that.
Yeah. These are just things nobody wants to say.
Yeah.
These are all of the things that nobody wants to say. This is statistical data. Go look it up. It's real.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, people who are involved in high conflict divorces, and so when you go to somebody and I say to you, Brandy Joe, my name is Kimmy and I'm involved in a high conflict divorce, you could be like, well, that indicates you are, by default, 50% of that reason. And that right away eliminates your desire to take it, what I'm saying, with too much validity, because that's a situation. Yeah. So then that detracts from my ability to be able to maintain a quality communication exchange. So that is one of the issues. So the second issue is people think, as did I, we have a legal system that is fair. And the very first thing that I have to tell people, the very first thing off the top, if you think the legitimate wrong that has been done to you is going to be calibrated in court, you are wrong. Hands down, point blank, you are wrong. That is not what happens in family court at all. So I have to drive home that as a point. There are some really, really great documentaries out. The best one is called Divorce Corp. And we've got several people that I'm affiliated with who were in that documentary.
And we've talked about that. We've talked about how these children and these divorces they're the commodity and they're the product that everybody's selling.
Yes. So I had to bring notes today to speak on that. So the definition, I'm going to give you the entire definition of trafficking of children is a form of human trafficking and is defined by the United Nations as recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt, kidnapping of a child for the purpose of slavery, forced labor, and exploitation. Okay, so now if I just take out the extras that are in the sentence. Trafficking of children is a form of human trafficking and is defined by the United Nations as transfer and or receipt of a child for the purpose of exploitation. That sentence defines family court in every American city right now in the United States. We are now, and I personally have found myself in a position, my child was used for trafficking in family court here in San Antonio. So how does that happen? How does it go back to...
I never feel good when I do these interviews.
Yeah.
So do you want to go into your personal
story? Sure.
Right.
I'll give the 50,000 foot view.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. This is a standard, and I've sent you this link. I testified for 2 separate bills in the last session, and one of the testimonies that I gave was specifically about this as an issue. So when you enter family court, you may enter, and I want to make. I'm never going to designate mom or dad as I speak. I'm always going to say parent. But I want to clarify the statistical data. The statistical data right now is 89% of moms have the children, and only 11% of dads have their children.
So at state convention, there was, I could name 2, there might have been 3 or 4 booths talking about equality in parenting, family court being the number one reason that, no, not right now. And family court being the number one reason that, and I talked to several of these people about this is the fabric of family and this is why our society is the way that it is. Mm-hmm. Because it's the legal system that is ripping these families apart, and they're not sharing the custody and sharing the parenting duties.
Yes.
And so that child loses one parent and loses the role model or the guidance with respect to how to be a productive American.
Absolutely.
And it's that ripping of that fabric that the legal system does.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
The thing that we so-called believe in.
Yes. And I've done the research on that, and I have to, the answer to all questions are follow the money. The answer to all questions are follow the money. And this is a very, very good...
This is a theme. So
you're like, really, Kimmy? So just to give everybody an idea of what Brandy Jo's face did, she just took a breath, leaned back, and sighed. Okay.
Because it's always about the money. I had this conversation this morning with Trish DeBerry. I had this conversation yesterday with Esther Schneider. And it's always just about the money. And it's hard to believe how much money is generated from these families being ripped apart by the family court system and the lawyers, not necessarily themselves doing it.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's start with like boots on the ground. So two people are getting a divorce and they have 2 children. They go into court. Individual 1 hires a lawyer. Individual 2 hires another lawyer. They go in there, and right off the top, without any clarification on how the household was ran prior to the time these 2 go into court, mom, most of the time, will walk away with the majority of custody of the child. Now, we have not established, what if mom's the full-time working partner and dad is the one who stays home? When you enter court for that preliminary order, they make a knee-jerk reaction and separate what has been happening. Now, I have to give credit to Arizona. Arizona is the only state in the union that looks at the division and time spent with the child by each parent at that very first hearing. And so if dad's typically out of town and mom's the primary caretaker and dad typically sees the kids on the weekend, that judge will default, okay, dad, you can have the kids on the weekends. Or whatever the percentage is, they default on that percentage.
So you're saying that 99.99% of the courts out there are a boilerplate process?
Totally. Completely.
Okay.
100%.
Except for Arizona.
Except for Arizona, as it pertains to the division of the children. Okay, now we have to take a step back. Okay. So now, parent A hires Sally, Sally the attorney, who's worked in this particular courthouse for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And Sally knows the other attorney. And let's say, for example, Sally and this other attorney are very good friends and they socialize on the weekends and they hang out. Now the judge has decided that, you know what, we need an amicus or guardian ad litem here. These 2 attorneys, depending on what their relationship looks like on a social level, will decide before parent A and parent B ever go to court who's going to win, how long this hearing is going to take, whether or not they're going to assign an ad litem or an amicus. All of that is decided up front of any evidence that's ever been disclosed. And why is that the case? Because when each one of those parents walked into each one of their respective attorney's office, the very first thing, and the only place you have to do this, is they wrote their name, their social security number, how much cash they have on hand, how much they have in savings, how much they have in the 401k, how much they have in all of their bank accounts, fully disclosed, before you get your first consultation with an attorney, okay? So now attorney A and attorney B have gotten together without each one of their clients and said, between the 2 of them, they've got $500,000. How long you want to draw this out? All right, we'll draw it out for this long. Because you've already told that person how much you have. And they designate all of that money for themselves. Most attorneys, family court attorneys, do not have anything to do with you unless you have $10,000 in their account at all times. So you are never allowed to drop your balance below 10K. So that is the majority of the upper echelon family court attorneys. Now, let's say, for example, one of these parents was a stay-at-home parent. One of them did not manage the finances. The moment the attorneys recognize they are in a power position over that situation, they create and inject an adversarial dynamic intentionally. So they know that if parent A was the one who really stayed home with the kids and parent B was not, all they have to do is tell parent B, you know what, it's going to be better for you in court if you go ahead and try to get 50-50 right now. Well, parent A is like, I do school, I do this, I do that, I do the other. And parent B is listening, quote unquote, listening to their attorney. Well, these attorneys don't have the interest of the kids or of the parents in heart whatsoever. They have their own agenda in mind. And the second that they bring one of the third parties in, such as the ad litems or the amicus, that person becomes on the payroll too. And those people can range anywhere from 10 to 30,000 in addition to each of the independent lawyers' fees also. So now you have a situation, and I can speak to this very, very directly. I hired a very well-known attorney here in Texas, thinking, oh, okay, you get the amount of justice that you can afford, because that's the reality of the legal system.
So that's right.
And I thought, okay, I don't have very much, but I'm going to take what I got and I'm going to give it to her. And did the minimum 10 grand in her account.
I've got a friend, he spent $25,000 on a divorce, and she kept using the kids during the divorce to get the 25 grand. She just wanted 25 grand.
Yeah.
And we can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's like, he had to pay her that, but then he had to pay his lawyers like, I don't know, 50, 60, 70,000 or some crap like that.
And I hate to say it, your friend got off extraordinarily cheap.
Because he didn't have any money to begin with.
Yes. I mean, they will squeeze you like no one's business. So we also have this thing that I would probably say, I don't want to throw every attorney into this bowl, but I will say 100% of the attorneys know of the situation that I'm speaking of, but only about 40% of them are willing to speak out against it or acknowledge its existence, should I say. Mm-hmm. And so I go to my high-powered San Antonio attorney and I say, listen, it's clear that this amicus does not like me. She goes, Kimmy, it's very, very clear. She goes, I'm going to tell you right now, it's clear that she doesn't like you. And I said, then we need to remove her because there's clearly some type of situation going on.
Explain what an amicus is.
So an amicus is appointed by the judge to advise the judge on what the best interest of the child is. Now, an amicus is not supposed to have the same degree of power as an ad litem, but because there's nobody who's willing to enforce the law.
So these are legal representatives that represent the court or represent the children?
Represent the children and advise the court on what they think. So now let's go ahead and explore that rabbit hole real quick. Okay. So we all are aware of the polarity of our society right now. Okay?
Polarity, good word.
The polarity of our society is extreme right now. Okay. So now let's say you have a conservative judge, and I'm going to speak from direct experience. I consulted with a parent out of Idaho, and she called me desperate. How can I help her? And we got the whole team together, and we did a 45-minute consult with her. This woman was married to a man for 10 years. They had 2 children, and for whatever reason, during the course of that marriage, everything was hunky-dory. She was never accused of being a bad mom, ever. And things were going good until she decided that marriage wasn't for her. So she got a divorce.
That happens every day.
And it happens every day. And it's a free country. You should be able to get a divorce. She opted to, I don't know if the terminology of become a lesbian is the right terminology, but she fell in love with a woman and wanted to pursue her life with this woman. Well, because division of the children hadn't already been set, and she was in a huge, strong Republican, very conservative area of Idaho, when she entered the courtroom, and I'm a very direct speaker. I was on a Zoom call with her. I asked her very poignantly. I said, "When did you color your hair blue?" And she goes, "About 3 months prior to going to court." Now, should we as a society judge everybody that has blue hair? No.
Emoji.
But we understand that there is a polarity right now. And unfortunately for this woman, she walked into a very conservative Idaho Christian Republican town, and in an instant, this woman no longer had access to her children. Silver bullet was fired, and a silver bullet, as is defined in family court, is against a man a sexual allegation of abuse, and against a woman a physical allegation of abuse. And I asked her, she goes, I am positive it was because I went in looking like I did. And I'm like, listen, I said, I am the opposite of you. I live here in San Antonio, Texas, where the majority of the judges are a Democrat. And I walked in and I wanted my son to be able to finish his faith formation classes. My daughter was already doing her confirmation. My son was right behind her. And at the age of 13, I was told by a Democratic judge here in San Antonio, Texas, that I was violating my son's right to freedom of expression by requiring that he finish his faith formation classes. And that is the bias, in addition to all of the other corruption that we face in a family court. If you dare leak out whatever your position is, you are doomed from the onset. Absolutely doomed. Is what happened to her as a very liberal lesbian woman living in Idaho appropriate? Absolutely not. So this is a situation that we can unite on because it's happening across the lines that you vote.
The law is not blind.
The law is completely blind. Except for religion and or blue hair. I'm sure it's just exclusive to us.
So this is what we're getting at. So we are trying to educate people that, I mean, everybody that listens to this podcast knows that I mean, I can say it, that we're fucked.
Yeah.
So this is a way to educate them in this particular occurrence or life happening or whatever, in case something happens, but also they can take this information and they can share it with their friends and their family that may at some point go through this horrendous life event.
Yes.
So how do you work within that, within this frame of family court, and how do you either help the children or the parent or whoever? Because you've told me some stories about the way that the court system is,
yes,
especially here in San Antonio.
Yes. So here's how I kind of navigate the situation. So I do what I mentioned earlier, and that is let people know that there is no fair shot here. I don't care who you are. If you are a conservative, if you are not a conservative, you are not going to get a fair shot, because that doesn't matter. What matters is how much money the players in front of you can extrapolate off of your children as a whole. That's it. They care nothing about you. They care nothing about your ex. They don't care one way or another. They are figuring out this commodity is coming through this courthouse, and how can we extract it for all of its possible resources? So when you look at the situation as that.
But tell me how the money works for the judges, because
Sure.
I found that to be infuriating.
Sure, absolutely. So roll back in history. So historically speaking, Title 40 funding was established for, it was meant for children in foster care, children in service. It was not meant to be used the way that it's being used now. So say you and your ex divorce and you have 2 children, and you are willing to pay your ex X amount of dollars per month because that's the right thing to do, and you know that your ex is going to have the children more often, and you trust your ex. They were a good parent before the divorce, and this is what I call a normal ranged situation. A normal ranged divorce is when there's not an individual involved in the divorce that has a personality disorder, very specifically personality disorder. Now, mental illness is separate. Mom can still be a good mom with depression. Dad can still be a good dad with PTSD from the war.
Gotcha.
And we'll get on that. But the personality disorders, they have to win. And so when they enter a courtroom and one of the individuals has a personality disorder, the moment one of these lawyers injects an opportunity for an adversarial position, that's when the personality disorder flourishes in a family court situation, because everybody is loving the fact that they don't care about the well-being of the child. They are now looking at the child as just a tool or an opportunity to prod the other parent. So when you go into court and we've got the normal ranged couple, parent A is willing to pay parent B, no problem. What should be able to happen is that your attorney a good attorney should just be able to draft an agreement between these two parents saying, hey, I'm willing to pay you this much. I'll pay it directly to you. I'll direct deposit to you. And the kids will get 100% of the benefit of that money. Mm-hmm. Okay. That will never happen in Bexar County or most of the courts across the United States. And here's the reason why. Enforcement. Title 4D funding is defined as enforcement as it pertains to child support. So say, for example, these two same parents were totally happy. Parent A was willing to do the $2,000 and parent B was totally okay with that. And parent A could just sell it or deposit it or however. That money now is not able to be extorted from the children. So a percentage up to 9 to 12%, depending on where it is, of that money, $2,000, gets subtracted from that if it goes through the child support system. So your attorney, instead of doing the right thing and just drafting an agreement saying, keep it out of court, just pay her. What will happen is you'll get a court order, and say the court order was dated January 1st, 2022, but you're still willing to pay that. You go down to the child support office and say, hey, I want to go ahead and get started making this payment and get on board. Oh, no. We can't take your money until the order has been brought over to the courthouse. No, I really want to the judge ordered me to start paying this yesterday. I'm here today. I want to get in front of this. I want to pay my money. They will not take your money because they don't get 14% reimbursement for every $1 you pay unless they have to send you a letter telling you to pay the child support. Enforcement. The moment that they send that letter, it is called child support enforcement. So now they sent you the letter saying you're 2 months in arrears now because we didn't process the judge's order until today. Now you're 2 months in arrear. We'll take your money now, and you have late fees, and you have this, and you have that. The late fees and outrageous interest rates that are on child support should boggle everyone's mind.
And they get that.
They get all of that. All of that goes to the courthouse that ordered the child support at the onset. Judges get a percentage of every dollar that they order back into a slush fund for their use. The state gets reimbursed every time they send one letter, $14 for every $1 the state collects.
$14 for every $1.
14 to 1. Imagine what's $2,000 times 14 once they send you that letter.
That doesn't make any sense to me. That's crazy.
Title 4D funding. Look it up. It is the most shocking, outrageous. Now, I have interviewed a gentleman by the name of John Gentry. He was a gubernatorial candidate for the state of Tennessee. And he had two partners several years back doing an investigation in the state of Tennessee into Title 4D funding.
And so Title 40 is federal?
Yep.
Okay.
It's federal. Mm-hmm. And so with that rate of money coming in, why would anybody want to give it up? But just another interesting thing for your listeners to look up is John Gentry, several years ago, about 15, 20 years ago, had two partners, and they started looking around and poking around into Title 4D. This couple, very, very prolific local politicians in Tennessee, husband and wife found dead in their home, murdered. Unsolved murder, but we all believe that it was because of the ruckus they were making on the Title 4D funding and how corrupt the system was.
So now you're getting into Clinton.
Yes.
Shit.
Well, it was Clinton who did. Yeah, it is Clinton who started this whole Title 4D. And
not 40, 4D.
4D.
4 as in Donna.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Title 4D funding. It's an awful situation. And so let's even if we look at the history of Title 4D and we look at the history of
we're going to need to clarify that because I've been saying 40.
Oh yeah.
4D. Yes.
Yeah, and I think they have it under Roman numeral 4.
I got it.
Yep, and D.
4D.
And I can... And I've got all kinds of really, really great statistical data I can share with you on Title 4D funding, etc. So let's dive into that just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're paying child support and you were doing just fine, and then you get into a car accident and now you can no longer go to work. You don't get to call the child support office and say, hey, listen, I was involved in a car accident. I can no longer go to work. I need my child support put on hold. Absolutely not. That's not how it works. You have to go hire an attorney, and you have to go, and it has to be no earlier than 1 year from the last time your child support was ordered. So most of the time, orders cannot be changed. Now, if you have a circumstance, it's still your responsibility to hire an attorney, go into court. Here was the time I got in a car accident. I've not been able to get in here for 2 months because I've been laid up in the hospital. That does not go retroactive. You still owe all of that child support. And you owe the late fees, and you owe all of that. Now, let's say you don't have the money to go back and get an attorney to go make that plea for you. You are now behind, and they will come pick you up, and they will throw you in jail. So now a parent...
I've known a couple people to be in jail about this.
Yes. How? Okay, so now that parent who has been, and I'm not saying that every parent not paying child support is a good parent. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that there is not room for a good parent to have any leeway whatsoever. What if a parent gets fired from a really good job and now is making less?
Yeah,
What if it's...
So just reading this, hold on. Just reading this, it says, despite its official sounding name, Title 4D, 4-D, maybe we should put the dash in there, simply refers to the federal law that requires states to manage a public child support program. This is important because many parents do not have an attorney to help them with child support matters or know how to establish or enforce a court order on their own. That's complete and total bullshit.
You see how one-sided that is? I'm so glad you said that.
So we're all dumb.
Do you see how
we need Ken Paxton to help us, and God bless Ken Paxton.
Yes.
We need Ken Paxton because his name is right here at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. He's getting a buttload of money.
We need him to help us establish a contract between two free people and of own free will.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Yes. And it's completely and totally one-sided. And you see how it was written to placate, they're all just victims, and this person doesn't have the wherewithal to go get the money on her own. And it's all just very, very written one-sided, exactly as you just read.
It's a way to establish the state knows all, and the state will
Yes.
Don't worry, I'm here from the government. Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay. That's right. That's right. And it has wreaked havoc, unimaginable havoc, because just by instituting free legal service, if you will, just as you just read, on behalf of one person, it creates an adversarial position. So if you and I are just sitting here having a conversation, but if the federal government walked in here and decided, you know what, we're going to sit right here next to Kimmy just in case Brandy says anything she doesn't like. Mm-hmm. That right there injects an adversarial position. Mm-hmm. They're here to protect me and watch over me. Protect you against what? That in itself implies that you are unsafe. Mm-hmm. And it is that passive-aggressive, veiled insinuation that has led us to where we are. And it is terribly, terribly sad, because there are so many fathers out there who do, all parents, just the less percentage.
But it's really the fathers that are
89%.
Oh God,
89%.
So we had this conversation yesterday that there has to be, and we talked about it yesterday. There has to be a strong, guiding, male whatever, and it can be a woman doing that. But to say, look, This is how you act as a human being. This is the societal contract that you agree to if you want to operate within this society. And children are not having that being done. And so now let's talk about, so let's just paint the picture for Ken that, you know, mom is black, got 3 kids. Dad works, he was a good provider. They just can't make it anymore. And then therefore, now he's on the out, and he's the one that's being pointed at and saying, no, you're the bad seed. You're the one that's going to pay all this money. And then what makes it, what warm and fuzzy feeling do you have to support your family when the government comes in and sits down at the table with you and says, one of you is good, one of you is bad?
100%. The injection of an adversarial dynamic.
The injection of government, period.
Yes, yes.
Instead of free people in a free society conducting free business in a contract way.
Yes.
In a contractual situation.
Yes. Yes. So
what do you do?
So back to me. So back to me. So I personally was unfortunate to be able to get a front row seat here in the Bexar County Family Court. And as I navigated that situation, so a parent should never lose a child because a relationship has been dissolved. And 3 months after we started the divorce process, I got hit by a silver bullet. And the silver bullet I was hit with was I was physically abusive to my son. Now,
which was totally untrue.
Completely and totally untrue. So
but it's out there.
But it's out there, absolutely. So now what happens?
So that's a red flag law.
Yes. Okay, so now let me paint the picture of how easy it is for someone to do this. Okay. You're at Starbucks. You're in a Starbucks restroom. Somebody walks into the Starbucks restroom wearing a hoodie and a mask. They walk in there. You're like, oh, I'm sorry, there's 2 of us in here. They take off their hoodie. They take off the mask. You walk out of the restroom. They walk out of the restroom beaten up. They've got a black eye, a bloody lip, and they point their finger at you and they say, Brandy just did this to me in that bathroom. And you're like, you're crazy. I didn't touch you. We were in there all of 30 seconds. I don't even know who you are. And they are pointing at you and they are crying. She came in there. She viciously attacked me. The police come. You're getting arrested. You're in jail. Your significant other posts bond. And you are like, I cannot believe this has just happened. What just happened? So now your employer fires you.
Yeah.
Now your neighbors are all looking at you sideways. Now all of your friends are like, Brandy might be crazy.
Yeah.
All of a sudden everybody's gone. And you spend $250,000 on your defense to prove that you did no such thing. Video comes out later showing that she walked into the bathroom and she had a black eye.
Amber Heard.
Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Absolutely. The video comes out, come to find out she's a liar, you got all the proof, and you are exonerated. Do your neighbors start talking to you? No. Do you get your job back? No. Is your reputation still in the shitter? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. None of that gets rectified. And in family court, all you have to do is have an amicus that simply doesn't like you. And here, I will tell you, Brandy, I am half Panamanian and half Scottish. I was raised in South Carolina. So I like to call myself a brown redneck because for all intents and purposes,
Yep.
And having come up in the South, I know what a real racist is. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, I've lived most of my life without ever coming in contact with somebody who treated me differently mm-hmm. because of my background. Mm-hmm. Until I entered family court in all places, San Antonio, Texas. I have an amicus who thought throwing a chancla at my son was abusive and went without giving any notice got a protective order against me from my son for having thrown a chancla.
And for people that are not from San Antonio, a chancla is a flip-flop.
It's a flip-flop. And for most brown cultures, throwing a chancla means you better pipe it down.
Yeah.
That is a warning to a child in most brown cultures. Indian culture, yes. Hispanic culture, Filipino culture.
When G-Dub got a chancla thrown at him in Pakistan, or wherever he was.
There we go. Yes, and I will tell you, so that is not a big, but if you have somebody appointed by a judge who has a culture that is different than your own, you are in a vulnerable position. And that was the position that I found myself in. And so right away, I'm sitting at home with one of my children cleaning the garage, cleaning on a Friday afternoon, having a lovely afternoon, and I get notice by email, court happened today 30 minutes ago, and now you have a protective order against your son. So now, in order to get a protective order, somebody has to sign an affidavit saying, I testify this. My ex, who was not present for the Flying Chancla, which, by the way, in San Antonio is the name of our baseball team, the Flying Chanclas, was not there. But he wrote an affidavit what happened, and he wasn't even present. Okay? So somebody can write an affidavit against you, and what is supposed to happen, and here is something very important, Brandy Jo, that I think that I really, really want the listeners to understand, because this affects so many different aspects of our life and our society. Constables and sheriffs have more power in any one county than anybody, including judges. And they are not exercising their power, and they're not exercising power in their capacity because no one does it like that. It's the old monkeys on a ladder routine. It is we didn't do it like that before. We didn't do it like that before. The bottom line is, each of their preambles that they took when they were sworn into office swears them to upholding the law as it's written. But they have had their ability to enforce the law as it's written ripped away from them. So right away, when I was able to go back into court and answer for this allegation, the moment that it was assessed in a legal setting, that an individual in that legal setting produced a document, swore to it in a judicial setting, and that document proven to be false, immediately inside the courtroom, the constable in that courtroom has more authority than the judge. They're supposed to stop and say, did they just commit perjury? And take the individual into custody. I will tell you, in Bexar County, our district attorney and the district attorney before, either we live in a city of saints and everybody's telling the truth, or our district attorney is just simply not.
I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah. We just do not follow through on perjury.
We're not following the law.
We're not following the law.
Again, this is the same, and I don't know who the hell I'm talking to, but this is the same theme that runs along.
Yes.
That our law enforcement officers, and yesterday we segmented them and we categorized them as law enforcement officers are following the law and detaining enough people, but the district attorney's office is not prosecuting those crimes that these people have been accused of committing.
That's right.
And now you're telling me within the actual court itself, these people are not doing their jobs.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. So in my mind, I'm still naive. When I got hit with the silver bullet, I'm still naive. I'm thinking he's going to be in big trouble for lying in court. I'm going to go down and I'm going to hit the special victims unit and I'm going to tell them that here's my affidavit that proves this person lied under penalty of law in a judicial setting. So that's a second-degree felony. if you use an allegation in a judicial setting, it's totally separate than just a regular. And I will tell you, Special Victims Unit, I had a total of 4 felonies, 1 misdemeanor that were all attributable to this individual who made these allegations. And SVU spent about 4 hours interviewing me, going over everything, only to call me back and say, yeah, we don't really take interference with child custody, perjury, and in this particular instance, enticement and endangerment. You are precluded from having protection under your local government if you are involved in any type of legal situation. So because I had an open civil case, all of the criminal situations that were perpetrated on me are invalidated because I'm in a civil setting. So you and your partner are getting a divorce, and your partner comes in, breaks your window, and breaks your car window or whatever, and you call and you say, hey, he just did all of this. Are y'all going through a divorce? Yeah, well, let them know in civil court.
What?
You don't get protections under the law. And I will tell you, so I was as egregious as you are right now, right? And I'm like, this couldn't possibly be the way things are going to go down. I just left the SVU. I had 4 felonies, 1 misdemeanor, all valid. I should be able to pursue these. So I called Internal Affairs and I said, here's the situation. And Internal Affairs says, okay, wait a minute. You're not calling here to complain. No. You're calling here because we're not enforcing the law. I said, yes.
Yes.
That's correct.
Please tell me there's a happy ending.
And Internal Affairs goes, in not so many words, our wings are clipped. We are being told to stand down from certain laws. And so...
By who? That was my next question. District Attorney?
District Attorney. So here's what it is.
The current District Attorney. Or the last one.
Okay, so look at it like this. And I got this from a beat cop.
Okay.
Okay? So you're not allowed...
A patrolman.
A patrolman. Is that now no longer PC? Okay. No offense. Right. I backed the blue.
We had the LOL conversation.
Yeah, I backed the blue. So I'm out there speaking to an officer, and he says, well, you're not allowed to have this much in weight of drugs on you. But we don't even write you a ticket if we find that much on you. And I said, but the law says you can't have this much drug on you. And he goes,
the district attorney's office won't even investigate someone shooting someone in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And saying, well, the person thought he was threatened, so we're good with that. Meanwhile, there's a dead man on the sidewalk.
Yes. And we just had a really big situation where a father went to go collect custody of his child at the designated location, and the mother's new boyfriend shot him dead on the doorstep. I'm not sure if you saw that.
No, when was this?
A little under a year ago. Yeah, and it's all on video and everything. But she was a judge in her local municipality. It is one of our local judges who has been assigned to look over that case because everybody in that county has recused themselves from having anything to do with it. There have been no arrests made, and this man was shot in cold blood. Mm-hmm.
In front of his kid?
In front of his kids, in front of her kids, in front of the other gentleman's kids. It was awful. I interviewed the daughter, the stepdaughter of the man that was shot. I mean, just tragic. And that would not happen, Brandy Joe, if we had the basic enforcements. These basic enforcements prevent these types of situations.
Which is where you come in.
Which is where I come in. But nobody wants to do them. So here's what a typical Friday night looks like for Kimmy.
Right.
Okay. So Friday night rolls around, and I'm gonna use 4-year-old Jordan. Okay, Dad of 4-year-old Jordan calls me, and Dad has not seen 4-year-old Jordan in a little over a year. Dad actually has 26 what SAPD likes to refer to as visitation violations, which is a made up nothing. There's nothing in any laws or rules or written anywhere a visitation violation. No, that's BS. We have Penal Code 2503, interference with child custody. If you don't let me pick up my kid on the date and the time the judge said, let me pick up my kid, felony interference, Penal Code 2503 should be enforced. Okay. So Jordan's dad calls me up and says, hey, do you want to come with me on this one? I said, absolutely. I'll go down with you. We go down. And calls the police. Police officer arrives, shrugs his shoulders and says, I'll give you a visitation violation. No, sir, officer. I would really like you to give Jordan's dad a felony interference with child custody.
Because that's paperwork.
Yeah. Yes. And this officer has the same attitude as I was telling you about the officer with the drugs. The officer with the drugs knows that even though this individual in front of him is breaking the law by being in possession of drugs greater than that particular amount, that the district attorney is not going to prosecute it. So he doesn't waste his time writing the ticket because he knows it's just not going to go anywhere. So now these officers have the same exact attitude on a penal code violation.
Yeah.
So let me just play this scenario out for you. Jordan's dad has not seen him in over a year. Officer arrives. He goes and knocks on the door of the last known whereabouts of this gentleman's son. Knocks on the door. Somebody unrelated to little Jordan, 4-year-old Jordan, answers the door, older female, and says, yes, Jordan is here, and no, his deadbeat dad cannot have access to him. Okay. First of all, in that situation, the moment that we identify that particular custodial parent, and that's another thing, nobody should ever be considered a non-custodial parent. Let's just go ahead and clear up that terminology. But we assign people custodial parent and non-custodial parent, which means the NCP is automatically looked at as the less than parent. That should never happen, and it currently happens. So the custodial parent is not there, and a random third party has possession of this 4-year-old. So this gentleman shows up with a valid court order that says it's his turn with the baby or the child, hand him over. This police officer then she says he's fine. That's it. And I say, okay, first of all, forget about the felony interference. We don't even want that. We need you to get that child and hand him over. Well, just then, baby mama's new boyfriend comes screeching up to this house, where baby mama's boyfriend has no problem getting in Jordan's father's face and the police officer's face. The police officer doesn't even secure, and I have all of this on video if you want to see it, because I videotaped all of this, and doesn't even secure the scene. Everybody's, cussing and screaming, and
there's no authority.
No authority whatsoever.
There's no command of the situation.
No command whatsoever. And a very hostile situation, and it goes on for about 15 minutes. The police officer leaves a house where a 4-year-old child has no biological relationship to anybody in that house, where another person shows up with a valid court order to say, that's my son, it's my turn to have him, and the other parent is nowhere to be found. Give me my child. Not only does the officer not ever put eyes on the child, never validates that the child's welfare is at least, let me see him, make sure he's good to go. Doesn't even lay eyes on him. Tell his father, get to packing, not going to do anything about it.
So the law enforcement, police officers in that situation have now become a social worker.
They don't have to be.
Because they can just follow the law.
Because they can just follow the law. Just follow the law as it's written, and you don't have to be a social worker.
They don't have a conversation with you when they walk up to your car and give you a speeding ticket.
They sure don't. It's cut and dry. It's cut and dry. And that's what we want. Enforcement of the law as it's written. Because I guarantee you, if that officer had walked up and said, let me see the child. Where's baby mama? She's not here. He has custody. Get the child, hand him over, see you guys later. That's it. If baby mama was there, he could have walked up and he could have said, ma'am, you can voluntarily hand baby Jordan over, or I'm going to write you a felony interference or child custody. Your choice.
And these people that are in the home with baby Jordan are not related to baby Jordan at all.
Completely not. Left that baby in in my opinion, an extraordinarily dangerous situation. Because just by virtue of what you can see on this video, the anger and hostility, they're clearly not people you would want your 4-year-old child to be left with. Yeah. And the number one precursor across every single culture, every single demographic in the United States, the number one precursor to child abuse is a step parent situation. Yeah. Now, not all step parents are bad,
right?
But is the number one precursor to violence against children in the home. Number one precursor. And this police officer just left, and baby Jordan's left there, and so I escalated it. Mm-hmm. I took the father over to the police department, and I said, I want the supervisor. So, against the law, when I walked in, of course, it was the police officer, and who's here to see the supervisor? And I said, myself and this father. Ma'am, were you in here last week? I'm in here just about every week. Yeah. Happy to say this is what I do on Friday night. I hang out here giving y'all a hard time.
Because you're not doing your damn job.
Because you're not doing your job. And it is the most heartbreaking and devastating situation to see these parents meander around a police station parking lot for an hour and a half, hoping that their kid shows up, Brandy Joe. Like, the devastation, I will tell you, statistically speaking, when these false allegations are alleged, when they are alleged against white men, they typically go on suicide watch. When they're alleged against Hispanic or black men, those Hispanic and black men just disappear. They throw their hands in the air.
Because they're defeated.
They're defeated.
Because they're already in a system that doesn't trust them anymore.
That's exactly correct. And so you end up in a situation, and I testified to this at the last session. I testified that suicide amongst men who cannot get their children.
God, this hits all the points. Jesus Lord.
You're going to go back and listen to this and be like, okay, which one of these multitude of topics do I need to have her back on? Yeah, it just goes across all of the board, and I go back to follow the money. This is a historical situation. The situation that we're in has been predetermined a long time ago. We knew what was going to happen. We are not the first test subjects, but what we did as a society is what I mentioned earlier, is we dismissed people when they said, hey, listen, we're not all bad. And if we go back to the 60s in LA, when we had a real strong, modern black family, dad in the home, mom in the home, 2 kids doing great, and we go back to Section 8 and figure out what happened to our strong black family in the 1960s within 10 years of Section 8 having been, and the incentivization of removing the father from a home, being given to a mother. That's where this entire situation started. And the nuclear black family was our test subject in the 1960s. And we can watch, okay, well, when we manipulate this and when we create this, this is what happens to the family. Okay, now we'll just expand it. And now we're all a part of, now this is not a race situation any longer. Whereas before, had we all paid attention to what the government was doing to manipulate the black family in the 1960s, and it was a successful test subject, we're all a part of the problem now.
Yeah.
We're all included. Oh, it was very, very lucrative. Let's expand it to everyone. And now we're all included in, and our most precious, and I know this sounds cliche, but the reality is the child is the commodity. And it is a commodity that it is being bought and sold. And we have created a society where you go into court and you are expected to relive the tragedy of having your child stolen from you, and you are expected to recount that situation with absolutely no emotion. Because the moment that you show some type of emotion, then now you're considered emotionally unstable. Whereas if you looked at the characteristics that are specifically associated with a personality disordered individual, they show no emotion. They're calm, cool, and collected. We just had the passing of a great doctor named Dr. Miller. He's a pioneer in family court and the personality disordered high conflict situation. And he called it the 4 C's: calm, cool, collected, is how somebody who is manipulating a situation will typically, and then the person who is like devastated because they haven't seen a child is the person who gets considered unstable. And so it's just a backwards situation. We look at all of the primates. You know, a bear will kill for their child. A lion will kill for their child. But we're all expected, and in my case, to sit back with handcuffs on, handcuffed to a chair, and watch as our children are drugged through situations that are as equitably dangerous to them in the long run as child sexual abuse. So what my son has endured, 4 years being separated from his mom with no contact, I have no updates, nothing, the outcome for him will be the same.
Yeah.
And it's just devastating, but
And
that's
that
what they want.
And that trauma will be passed on.
Absolutely. A generational trauma. Absolutely. And follow the money. Follow the money.
So you are supporting Mark LaHood,
I am.
and you've had conversations with him
Yeah.
about this. And I've had conversations with him because we tend to get together and cuss with each other. Not at each other, but
Together.
we love to cuss. But he's a guy that I truly believe is literally fed up, and his brother was kind of the tipping point and the catalyst for this, you know, being a Democrat. And I said this earlier to somebody, that the Democrats, which I have friends that are Democrats, but I don't have any friends that are leftists.
Yes.
So you have this good golden American, you know, Democrat Party that is shrinking and moving more towards the center, literally meaning more towards the right, and then you have these leftists that want this planned chaos.
Yes. Yes, that's what this is. That's absolutely.
I mean, we can get into it. This is New World Order. This is liberal world order. This is basically destroying America as a whole.
100%. And it was planned. It was all planned. Like I said, the nuclear family is what they want to tear apart. And now that they've successfully done that, what is an outcome of that? These roaming children with no ability to maintain contact with a support system. So ask yourself, there's never ever going to be any reason to shrink the circle of love for a child, ever. And the law is very, very clear. The Texas Constitution, and I got to give a little credit for Ken Paxton. Mm-hmm. Ken Paxton wrote a really, really great letter about family court, and a really great letter because obviously we could go down the rabbit hole of CPS. Mm-hmm. CPS is absolutely awful. We've got a really, really great video. I'll send it to you. We have CPS asking a panel of 3 judges to make them exempt for having to be truthful in court.
Oh my God!
Because they should be able to tell the lies that are necessary in court in order to remove a child if that's what they think should happen. I have the entire video. And the panel of judges, thank God, are like,
what did you just fucking say?
Yes. Yes. The panel of judges, fortunately, had the response. So what you're telling me is, I'm supposed to let you lie. Yes, absolutely.
For the child's sake.
For the child's sake. You see how everything is under the facade of protection and under the facade of we're just protecting. Anybody who A, accuses somebody of being unsafe, or B, comes to you in the idea of you need protection, question it. Immediately question it. So we were in...
Don't worry, we'll just call the police.
Yeah. We were in session. So I went on these laws last year, and we were up there testifying and trying to get support. We had 3 bills that we were trying to get. We were trying to get a 50-50 shared parenting bill. 50-50 shared parenting. Mm-hmm. We've got 13.
And that's what I saw at convention. I mean,
yes.
These weren't dads or nonprofits that were like, we want to tear the house down. Well, and maybe they should at this point. But these were like, we want to just co-parent our kid.
Yes. Just let me be involved.
Very simple.
Let me be involved. Yes. Now, we got the state breathing down your throat if you miss $1. But where's the state when it's time for you to pick up your child? Mm-hmm. And why isn't anybody helping you garner access to the child that you're being like strangled to pay child support for? Mm-hmm. Now, we'll strangle you for child support, but we're not going to do anything to help you actually see your kid.
Yeah.
Nothing. So we had 3 bills. One was the 50-50 shared parenting. One was, okay, let's see if we can get them to do a $250 fine since they're not going to enforce Penal Code 2503. So we were trying to attach $250. So if we attach $250, maybe then we can incentivize a DA or internal affairs to encourage the officers to say, all right, well, you're not going to turn the child over, but if you don't, we'll fine you $250. So $250 going into the local police department. I mean, you know what? If you're getting $250, maybe we can incentivize the local police department to do their job.
Right.
No, we couldn't get that through. But the most remarkable thing, this was my big takeaway. My big takeaway from going there, and I will tell you, we had a huge amount of bipartisan support for mm-hmm. the 50-50 shared. Huge. But there's this organization called the Texas Family Law Foundation. Texas Family Law Foundation is an organization of all family attorneys.
Divorce lawyers.
Divorce lawyers, okay? We have 3 divorce lawyers. Niave, Ramos, and Cook. Okay? So...
In the state legislature.
In the state legislature. In the state legislature. Okay? Now, the state preamble, Article 3, Section 22.
Oh, I love this.
States, disclosure of personal or private interest in measure or bill. Not to vote. A member who has a personal or private interest in any measure or bill proposed or pending before the legislature shall disclose. Shall. Now, I don't know if you know how powerful the word shall is.
It's very powerful.
But the word shall.
It is not may.
It's not may. It is shall. Shall disclose the fact for the House of which he is a member and shall not vote therein. Written. That's the law.
Yeah.
Okay, it's simple. I get it. You get it. We all get it. No. Those 3 jokers sat and did everything that they could to kill bills that were in the benefit of children and participated in these votes. So Kimmy thinking, well, that's a break in the rules. Kimmy's going to go out and she's going to report it. Kimmy's going to bring this. You know what? I contacted the Texas Rangers, who have authority over that building.
Yes.
The Texas Rangers can stroll into the Capitol and arrest everybody in there if they feel like it.
Right.
Once they recognize that they have broken the law. That's the oath that the Rangers took.
Right.
So Kimmy is on her computer and she's texting or emailing the Texas State Rangers. This individual, and this individual participated in these votes. Here is the law, and you need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to pass on that, but thanks for letting us know. And that is what I was telling you about the constables and the sheriffs and Texas Rangers not doing their job. If those three organizations were doing their job like they should be, we wouldn't be where we are with this voting situation.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be where we are with the child welfare situation, with the lack of enforcement of laws. But they are not doing their job. And more importantly, they're scared to do it. I followed up on my call that I had mentioned to you earlier when I called Internal Affairs and said, hey, I'm calling. Why aren't they enforcing the law? And he would basically said, and I recorded the conversation if you ever want to hear it.
Okay.
Internal Affairs just basically said, we're just being shut down. If it's not something that's get picked up by the DA, we don't waste our time doing it. But you took an oath. So then I called the FBI. Recorded that call too if you ever want to hear it also.
Yes.
And the FBI was very, very interested, and they took a full report. Did they ever call me back? No. Absolutely not. Texas State Rangers? No. So I can sit here and I can show you at the Capitol building, the highest judiciary in our land is breaking the rules at the very top echelon as it pertains to our laws as they are written. And the corruption goes all the way there. And I can't get a single law enforcement agency to do anything to senators openly participating. I have Senator Ramos on video while she's in the middle of a session telling a parent, family court is a billion-dollar industry. We're not doing 50-50 shared parenting. She said that on a panel she shouldn't even have been on because she should have recused herself from that vote because she gets money by not doing 50-50 shared parenting.
Wow.
She likes to dangle a child.
So we've got to elect the right people.
We've got to elect the right people.
This all gets down to actually voting and electing the right people and then actually having an election that's clean, transparent, fair, and no machines connected to the internet.
That's right. That's right. But if we find somebody who has machine connected to the internet, I would expect my sheriff, my constable, or the Texas Rangers to go knock on a door and put somebody in handcuffs. Accountability is a problem here.
So here's the evolution of all this. I put all of this on the internet. I put it on a podcast. I share it on social media. It's there in an archive. And we're going to be the crazy ones at the end of the day.
Of course. I should have disclosed this at the onset. I'm already designated that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's people out there that just don't want to see actually what is happening. And then, I mean, I'm going to need some pills because the veracity of the chaos that is just simmering below the surface to where somebody who gets up, gets in the shower, has their coffee, goes to work, does a good job, comes back home, gets a paycheck, they're not paying attention.
No, and they're so distracted, just trying to live their life and pay their bills and, make sure the lights don't get cut off, that I almost feel intrusive to have to ask them for the support that is necessary. But the reality is no one wants to get involved until they find themselves in the situation. Yeah. And then it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been quite depressing.
Anytime, I'm here for you.
but very good. So, Kimmy, thank you so much. And going forward, just like what I said to Esther yesterday, I want to drill down on everything. So these files and all of these interactions that we have are just learning sessions so we can share it with people so more people know.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to get in one shameless plug.
Absolutely.
If we can find anybody local, and clearly we're on the Republican side here, but I have to give props where props are due. Senator Menendez was extraordinarily helpful. He testified on behalf of our bills that we were pushing through. This year he can't do SB 2011, so if we could find somebody on our side to support SB 2011, I have it. It's very, very simple and straightforward. the case of little Jordan, how the police officer never put eyes on little Jordan to make sure that he was okay. That's the law that we want. We want to require law enforcement to put their eyes on the child to make sure that they're okay. We've got too many instances. We got about half a dozen children in Houston that lost their lives over the last 2 years that could have been prevented if the police officers had just put eyes on the child. Ugh. So SB 2011, we just want...
so just put that cherry on top there, Kimmy. Yeah. So
he was trying not to be depressed. It's just too much truth going on here.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you don't want to listen to this going across the country because you might not get there. So I'll try and chop it up and make it to where it's digestible and actionable. So we'll have links, and we'll have links for people to join you and to contact you and to get on the.
Yes, and if you need help with enforcement, I'm available. You can find me on Facebook. You can reach out to Brandy Jo. I will help you go. I will be with you Friday night in the parking lot of the police station to help you get that. Reach out, Lone Star Family Advocacy. It's online. The website's there. You can message me there. I'm available at Kimi-Lyn Reed on Facebook, and Brandy Jo will have the link. Yeah, I'm here to help.
I bet we'll get a lot out of this. Thank you, Kim.
Absolutely.
Good job. I mean, really good. We just need to educate people.